Welcome to Autodesk Pulse, where we speak to leaders and innovators in architecture, engineering, construction, and the design and manufacturing space about trends and current events. I'm Dean, your host, and I work as a channel development executive here at Autodesk. And today we're speaking with Andy Cunningham. Andy has been with Autodesk for 10 years and is the regional director for Australia and New Zealand. And Andy also heads up the AEC initiatives for the Asia Pacific region. Andy, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Dean. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you. I know you've got a crazy busy schedule, so I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
No problem at all.
Well, look, we've just got 5 short questions for you, just to give listeners a taste of what you're currently experiencing in your roles in the ANZ and APAC. So should we get started?
Yep, that'd be great.
All right. So 2020 has been such a challenging year globally. What are you hearing about in the architecture, engineering and construction sector at the moment in ANZ? And is that the same as what you're seeing in the wider APAC region?
Look, great question, Dean, to start. Certainly the differences around APAC are really COVID dependent. And it makes sense there, I guess, that we're seeing different stages of emergence from lockdown, different stages of the pandemic impacting it. So if you were in China, it's very different to in Australia or New Zealand versus India. But the curve seems to be the same, as in the impact of lockdown and then the trajectory out again. It's definitely forced us to look at everything, the way we work, how we work, what we do. Whether you're confronting sort of emergencies in that regard, or international collaboration because you can't travel any longer. There's so many unprecedented challenges that have been thrown upon the world and the AEC industry this year as a result. And there's had to be huge changes that have been implemented to drive business continuity, to allow our customers to connect to their customers. And really just bunker down and get resilient through this period. But the changes are profound. The things that we have seen implemented, while they may be eased, they will have an ongoing impact, most definitely in the way we work. I truly believe the office that we left February, March isn't the office, figuratively speaking, that we'll go back to when this is all said and done.
Yeah, sure. It's definitely sped up a lot of innovation. So you've been involved in Autodesk with an initiative called the Project Salas. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what does that mean for our customers?
Sure. And Project Salas it's an internal name, but it's starting to get traction out there as well. It's one of those things. But really, this is our return to work initiative for the AEC industry. And you'll see that out there in some branding and some assets that we can share with you. But really, as I said earlier, COVID's changing the way we live, whether it's a coffee shop trying to connect with be able to deliver coffee to customers, whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a retail environment, whether you're a venue that has people moving through, anywhere where people are involved, it's changing the way we look at things, whether it's layout, whether it's queuing, whether it's capacity, everything is totally different. And even in the corporate sense, the open floor plan across buildings, the plate that we used, that's been so popular as of over the past few years. What do we do with that? So all these sorts of things are changing, and a lot of our customers and your customers are rethinking their layout, their spaces, their people flow. There's a lot of demand for those sorts of things around opening spaces, considering air conditioning, transport hubs, etc. So Project Salas, as you say, or the AEC Return to Work, is really about looking at the changes required that have been presented to us this year around people flow, airflow, and around digital collaboration for environments. And for Autodesk, it's about partnering with our customers and public health advisories to address these needs with the tools and expertise that we provide today.
Okay, well, that sounds great. And as we move to build ourselves out of this COVID recession, what are the 3 things that you're seeing leading companies implementing right now to help make this transition easier?
Yep, look, 3 things, Dean, 3 Ds really. One is digitalization, which is different to digitization. And that's something that's emerged through a lot of this through this year. Digitization is the move to digital. And in our industry, we did that when we put these things down on the desk, probably 30 years ago, and started to move to CAD software. Digitalization is the implementation of that digital content, but in processes, in workflows, in operations through organizations. So the first thing would be digitalization, moving, and we've seen some firms that have had to move almost overnight due to lockdowns to, virtual operations, collaborative environments across the cloud, et cetera, to provide business continuity. So that's the first thing. The second is design. The way we design has changed. We've seen an absolute necessity of public health and safety and space planning come into play. And initially that was the plexiglass that everyone saw everywhere. You think about it now, you go to the supermarket, you go to a checkout, you go to a McDonald's drive-through, there's plexiglass everywhere. Now that's short term, right? And that's a crude example. But the way we design our spaces will change, because restaurants, bars, commercial environments won't want plexiglass everywhere, in that temporary sort of sense. The way we need to design for the new reality is different. How do we analyze and improve air quality and airflow? How do we analyze and improve people motion through spaces, so that we don't need these artificial temporary barriers in place? And we need to then respond as designers and makers by adopting innovative tools and design processes to really provide or simulate these environments and provide multiple options through the course of design. The third is disruption. Most definitely, if there's one thing that this year has done, it's disrupted. And we've seen a building of the need for disruption in the construction industry, and in various industries for many years now. But COVID's brought it to a head and said, right, all this need that's been building up needs to happen now. It's happening right across the world. It's happening in different industries, whether it's manufacturing supply chains, whether it's digitalization on construction sites. There's so many changes, excuse me, that are being brought about. Ultimately for the good, as hard as this is to go through, ultimately it will be for a better, sort of new normal that we go back to. And there's so many different experimental approaches and things happening. And I say to our customers, you have the ingenuity to solve this, most definitely, and we have the tools and expertise to work with you to address and deliver that.
Yeah, this sounds great. And actually, with that, in mind, and considering looking to the future, what do you feel are the biggest opportunities in the ANZ architecture, engineering, construction sector in the next 2 to 5 years?
Sure. I mean, I think the initial thing, Dean, is the rebound out of what's happened this year.
Sure.
We've seen commercial slow down. We've seen the multi-story residential slow down, and that was kind of coming anyway with the supply we had in the market. And now there's this unknown around the redesign and the reusage of commercial spaces. So that's an unknown, most definitely, and that we'll have to resolve. But we're seeing healthcare environments, government spending, education growing, industrial design and construction is on the way up, because we're seeing supply chain changes underway. So remanufacturing happening on shore, different supply chains, manufacturing on site on the construction with fabrication, etc. And then with government spending, obviously the transportation and infrastructure boom was already in flight in Australia and New Zealand, and we've seen that accelerate as some of the stimulus activities. So from a market, I see those sort of things playing out. From the discipline, I guess, of design in the AEC space, I alluded to it earlier. Generative design is absolutely what we're going to see ramp up. We're seeing ramp up now, and we're going to see ramp up even more over the next sort of 2 to 5 years. For those that don't know what that is, think of artificial intelligence complementing you, the designer, but using the power of the cloud, the power of parallel computing to solve these design challenges. So crudely, you can put a set of design challenges into the machine: cost, structure, form, etc. And the machines will parallel simulate design options for you. Now, that could be for a chair, that could be for a shock absorber in a car, that could be for a curtain wall on a building. But the parallel computing will give you thousands and thousands of design options, and then let you iterate down through selections, through to the choices that you're looking for. As I said, initially it was more on the form sort of side. So we saw, as I said, curtain wall design, structure design, organic forms on chair legs, etc. in the furniture sort of space. But as I alluded to earlier, form is somewhat giving up for function at the moment, given what we've seen over the past 12 months. So we're now using generative design solutions to analyze, as I said, traffic flow through train stations, these sorts of things as well. Floor plate design to drive separation on building floors. So there's lots of different ways, but generative design, we're just exploring the start of it. It's becoming mainstream now, and we will absolutely see that take off through the future.
There's certainly interesting times ahead for everyone then.
Most definitely. Definitely.
And look, we've all had challenges at this year, 2020. It's been an extremely difficult time. I mean, what have you personally missed the most over the last, say, 6 to 9 months? And if everything went back to some sort of normal tomorrow, what would be the first thing that you'd be looking to do, Andy?
Right. That's pretty easy, Dean. I live in Sydney, but I'm born in Melbourne. So my mum and dad and 2 brothers are in Melbourne. The first thing I'd be doing is jumping on a plane down there to see them. That goes without saying.
Yeah.
Secondly, I would extend that flight around the world, because many great friends around the world that we're communicating on these things as best we can. But as we know, there's nothing like human contact. So plane ride around the world. And the third, you'd probably expect this, Dean, I'm busting to play a gig with my band. So I'd be straight back in a pub.
Sure.
It
sounds like you're going to be busy. We might not see you for a few months first. Very good. Well, look, great, Andy. Thank you very much. Again, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. And I know we've just scratched the surface here with a lot of things. So if anyone listening wants to learn a little bit more, check out our resources at autodesk.com.au or send Andy or I a message on LinkedIn. And we'll also add some links below. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Autodesk Pulse. Thanks, Andy.
Thanks, Dean. Bye all.
Bye.